Chapter 6. I was in town, which I have never seen before. I knew it was not my country, but the people were strange, and I could not understand their language. Owing in hunger and frustration, I fell down to no sensation. I lay upon the muddy way for long. When I opened my eyes, I was in an unspeakable condition. I found myself surrounded by street children with edible items in their hand. Almost every one of them was offering me something to eat. My starving soul couldn't just wait so. I didn't know how fast I finished all what I saw. Later, they told me that food items were stale and junk, which they had collected from dustbins and heaps of garbages. They also asked me how I happened to be there. After hearing my story, they all hugged me, and one bigger boy said, "Most of us have the same story. So we were the birds of the same father." Another boy who was rough and tough said, "First go to that water gutter and have a bath, though it's very dirty." We had no other options. I made up my mind to get by the same on arrivals. All about the same. My ears went on receiving the speaker's ongoing sound. And after taking a bath, you won't find us because it's our time for begging, and you also learn how to beg and survive. Then they went somewhere separately. Once again, I was left alone and helpless in the street. Life was every way proving defeat. I was like a stranded pedestrian whose destiny was at pit, with the fourth diff, dark and unclean, as for always to remain a den. I saw a child of my age. He was begging in the street. I learned how to beg for living. The child was considered apt for Thanksgiving. He could only cry, and he cried. Eyes all around him were dry. None lent a hand. He was in a big crowd, though. No one looks at the low. He flung himself in the mud, kept quiet, even the Lord. He couldn't see or speak, nor could he hear. He had a house of air. One was humane out of many, who gave him some honey. All things served through made him no quiet. His thirst no one could hide. Only one voice made him silent, saying, "Son," touched his hand. It was his mother, who had left him to beg. Nothing equaled her cost. To myself I made chat. I, in bewilderment and bereavement, how could his own mother do that? What I saw there surprised me because she was also physically challenged. She alleged that she had lost her limbs during the war. She was also one of my people. There were so many like me having their hard times. There was a big gathering, and he started his story. At the pinnacle, the Civil War was on, destroyed my fate, day in, day out. No matter how we prayed to the moon and the sun, they never heard us. However, we cried out. From the school, I was on my way back, anticipating my parents with a welcome look. There, except ashes, everything lacked. By all angst and grief, I was on a hook. I was just 10 and left with nothing. A stranger's heart was the wed seeing me. He wrote my fate with his poor ink. I wondered where my father would be. Being under hatred and hard work, I grew up. My all roots were rotten, and my youth would be robbed. I met my mother here in such a condition. Our existence depends on our being. She leaves me here to suffer, else we get hardly anything to eat. In fact, she suffers twice as much. Hearing his story, all gave him money but me. I was like a guest in a beggar's. Yes, I was. I took a shelter in front of the tall building, hopelessly. To speak the soul, I was down with extreme hunger. I was chilly cold, and I had not even enough clothes to cover my body. How could I have that much cloth to cover the cold? As I had been sopping all night, I didn't know when I went to sleep. To the splashes in the gutter water, the parsimonious property owner woke me up saying, "Go away, you fucking street child." The lady's cutting slang filled my nerves with the sense of threat of a kind, so I ran away in open place. The sun rose, but my fortune seemed to have gone set. I had no direction. All children with overwing ambitions in the building are loved much when they get up. They have their own direction. They go to school, they have their parents to love, but what a life I have for living, life under question. I have to fight with street dogs or steal junk food, and humanity is spread so common. Many days went by I could make thoughts just about some. Begging became a part of life. I sang for the alms I was stretching my hand for the belly gone straightened for survival. I wake up every day with no direction. The sun keeps rising, but my fortune, it does keep setting. I have become a street child. There were also suffering. Here are also suffering, facing problems everywhere, here and there, and ups and downs. Those of my age in big buildings are loved much when they get up. Their wish is fulfilled. They have their own direction. I do but get up with street dogs. Do not know where to go and what to eat. I wish my parents were with me and sent me to school every day. For a living, I fight a lot. Even I have to fight the street dogs for my share. If I am sick, I should die or live hard and have to wait for self-recovery. All of my aims are locked by the hunger, though I like to be a singer. All my ways were lost far behind. Nobody could lend a helping hand. I don't know where I'll be tomorrow. I don't know where I will sleep tonight. I don't know how to speak and write. I don't know how I will live or die. At midnight, suddenly, a girl approached me. I was afraid to see her in a white sari. She said, "I am a soul that you have such power that any souls can communicate with you. So I am here to tell you my story. I was killed by my own mother because she was worried about my chastity to go ruined upon the evil hands of men in my country. I was a professor's daughter. He was always busy in the research, and she was unnecessarily churlish. During the war, many girls had gone through this story. Let me tell you my story so that you can be aware the globe inhabits such trends. She was lost in the smoke that gradually disappeared. Something like a song was heard of stage. No tresses on my head in the late teen. Mascara in my life seldom had I seen. Hundreds of gorgeous boys walked by. Nobody could see my hidden splendor. For them I ever looked shy. The pinnacle of beauty I reached. A ripened fruit all set to be eaten. Finally, in beauty, she made me rich. But in the paradise I was set trenched by the heart she found in men, though many approached to beg my hand. I was godly treasure, she said. Such virgin only he should enjoy. But such a way I never met. Suddenly the arrival of the tricklet landlady, who always gave me a heart-piercing harangue, made her disappear. I tiptoed to the safe to decide either. All so on Yankee voice, she yelled me back saying, "I am sorry I chowed you each night. Come with me upstairs. I will give you good food." So I made to follow her like an obedient child. I did into where she led me to her kitchen. She asked me to have a bath at midnight before food. Without raising any question with her mercurial temperament, I kept doing what she asked me to do because only it mattered what she was going to assuage my hunger. Seeing such a variety of food items, my mouth watered. Couldn't stop eating, just sitting on the floor. I kowtowed to her. I ate all the exuberant manner. She was just looking at me as if some TV serial snob were watching the program. As soon as I finished eating, she carried me clung into her bedroom. One thing remarkable was her attitude. Despite her being in her 40s, she proved to be energetic in a way. She was a virago. Finally, she exhorted me to her goal. I sensed it all so immoral, but any sense thereon would be no sense at all. She started shedding her clothes. Something unusual was going to be staged there, and I thought of an escape of the claws of lust-aided rape. My attempts but went loose that she had latched the door, making my escape superfluous, and lured me by giving me a mere penance. Reknocking nothing of mercy, I happened to outburst with tears there and then. Seeing me on limbo at her urge, the lady closed my mouth and said, "If you linger more, I will get you arrested by calling my husband. He is a police officer, you know. If you don't trust me, then look at our family photo." I threw a glance at the pictures hung on the wall. I was down with the circumstances engulfing me. Driving to the state of helplessness, she put my clothes off and started playing with my bud. She made me text for practicing her pleasure. After some time, I realized torpor chatting upon me. She too let me loose in leaving in a state of psychological discomfiture. I was completely apathetic and irked, but I gave her a sigh of relaxation. She was in sort of emotional bliss in my reading. She looked happier. She didn't let me go out of her compound even after so. I could run up to the tall wall either. She precluded my possible exit. She used me for many days. I was not a bit thrilled at the text of sex. One day she was spotted in action. I thought the lady would be punished and I would find an escort out. Conveniently, everything I played in my mind went wrong. The incident added to my plight again. I was declared and though convicted there. Instead of punishing the lady, the man took me, a sole convict, and started mishandling me his way he could. The cheap and completely driven by the concord of spouse made out, she started equivocate. He did it against my will. Do not spare him. Hang him till he dies, so that nobody dares to see the lonely and innocent lady this way. God save me. I was beaten until I lost my consciousness. When I opened my eyes, I was in the riverbank, badly wounded, ruled with frustration of a type. I grew in me a tree of despair that made me take a way to the nearby bridge. I decided to jump off some way. As I was about to jump, I heard a man whistling. I gave my ears to what he was uttering. To my alertness and inspiration, I found his words laden with experience and philosophy of struggles for life and truth. His words made me decide to live further. Hastily, he walked past me. Many pedestrians were left behind. Though the wheels were his limbs, those hands were propelling key. In a black outfit he was, with a tie. A can of paint was dangling on it. A sorry figure he didn't seem, though he was left alone to die. Many bees were after him, perhaps looking for the nectar he would draw. Being with the replica, their generation has to go on. They logged him and relate their dream. Escaping the crowd to their such a corny look, he was chanting freely at heart, whistling, paddling, and willed some time. A few good men had craving to read his book, despite being his rival, only the nature was at ease. He stopped and turned back and said, "Why did you change your mind seeing me?" I cast the remark onto him. "You are my brother-in-law, Harris, aren't you?" He just nodded his head and cried. I went closer and carelessly touched his hand. I happened to choke with my voice that said, "How did you become like this? Where is my sister?" He took me to a lonely place, he said. There was a big explosion in my house during the crossfire between the state and the rebellion group. They even discredited our worshiping places. Some even took shelter in my house against my will. My house collapsed and I was hurried beneath many bricks and stones. Let me explain how I survived. That I came out was out of question, buried beneath the town. Never had such the smallest space to live. Everywhere pitch darkness. I could move nothing at all. I cried and cried in despair, underneath the debris sheltering me. I wished I would rather be of nothing at all, except a little space to live. If only my hands and legs were freed. I cried both ways. A little fortune hugged me, with the dustbin nearby. Unless I ate that, I couldn't live. The hunger left me with no choice. It was the biggest explosion which turned everything into hell. Thousands of sufferings around my life, and more playing for death. The value of time I knew being in that situation. For the ray of optimism above. All the senses were dead and agony beyond. Only the last breath of hope. The sound above me made me cry happily, but I couldn't shift at all. My spirit got up and hugged them. Through senseless my body was. I was declared dead. They walked away. Only I knew I could live. They freed me. I was kept among many dead souls, might be to bury us. This time I forgave living. I ruled myself a little father. No one understands my sign except one far above. I could hear him say, "Help yourself there." I was out of their notice and all that went carrying all of their dead bodies. I looked for my family, but in vain. I was just making a bridge for a flying, living a life of an opposite. I lost everyone and everything. This is how I came here. Now I'm working in an office and trying to act happy, because my job is to inspire others to live happily. Something exploded in the sky, which stopped our conversation. We saw a patriotic failing towards us. The crash of aircraft made them fall towards the sea. The sign of living was beyond the horizon. The fortune only thanked them with the parachute, but it was their doom to be found 1 and 2. They caused it to fall far down into the sea. One was a warrior with another was an ex-one. Die both or live one were their options. The former was at service, so the latter jumped off. He settled to the riverbank. Soon there was a crowd. He revealed that there were many huge weapons in the chopper, which was to be used for war. Oh my God, still some people are being killed there. I am sure that they're having a hard time. Live hard or die, he said, looking at the mountains of our nation. The soldier ran into the forest after a short talk. His activities were very apparent. Why don't you go to camp? There are so many refugees. Every day, hundreds of people join there. You are given basic needs for survival. Harris said, being optimistic. I was keen to know more. Instantly I agreed because I was hopeful that I would find some of my relatives. Why don't you go with me then? How far is it from here? I said with a little hope and smile. He said, I will join you there later because I am given the message of peace through my paintings, regardless of my painful condition. I want to see me country in peace so that I may go back, play with my kids, see the green mountains, cattle me around, my wife bringing me snacks. So I will wait and watch.